Welcome to today's language lesson, the lesson of how we know things are true. Hello. If you're doing religious studies at GCSE or A-level, you'll very often be asked to explore how we know things are true because, of course, questions to do with religion often do hinge around whether we know they are true. This isn't just useful for that subject, of course, it's also useful for subjects like science or history, where questions of truth become equally important. And there are many schools of philosophy which dig into this and try and work it out. But today's session is really just a summary of some of the language that might be useful to you to use when trying to explore or unpack whether things are true or not. The first word we'd probably talk about is the word probability, because very often in religion, in history, in all subjects like that, what we're talking about isn't absolutely true, it's only probably true. So it's very important if you're tackling an exam answer, for example, or if you're just discussing it, that you realise that when you say it's true, you're not talking about some sort of absolute thing. The great philosopher and mathematician Descartes talks about this, where he says the only thing that is really guaranteed as truth are mathematical concepts, absolute logical concepts. But ideas to do with morals or to do with the existence of God, the truth of miracles, anything like that is really something that may or may not probably be true. And where you pitch that level of probability is an important part of how academically you tackle these things. Which then of course brings you to a key word, because in any such answer or in any such debate you would almost certainly use words of proof and evidence. So let's just take a couple of minutes to unpack those two words. First of all, evidence. Evidence is a collection of things. So if we, for example, were talking about whether miracles were true, we might look at examples of miracles. And obviously they would be evidence. They would be things that we would piece together. Sometimes first-hand evidence of people claiming them for themselves. Sometimes second-hand evidence, accounts of them written by someone else. But all of those amount to evidence. And evidence is an important process of how we work out whether anything's true in our lives. This isn't just true of religion or philosophy, it's also true of science, it's also true of most subjects that are studied in schools. And so then that brings you to this word proof, because what's the jump from something being evidence to something being proved? Now, proof sounds like it ought to be absolutely right. Oh, well, that proves it, doesn't it? People might say. But of course, proof is the process of putting that evidence together and drawing some conclusion. If we were in court together trying a legal case, we would look at the evidence and we would see whether the case was proven. And by that, we can't give some sort of absolute answer. We can only give the most probable answer. So proof is all about the level of probability and the journey we use to piece that evidence together to try to find out whether it's true. So in history, we might look at evidence to do with the Second World War. We might piece all that evidence together and try and draw conclusions. But of course, the result is in history, you'll often get different people interpreting things in different ways. And different history books will give different accounts of things simply because their proof has come out slightly differently in each case. The same is absolutely true in religion. The same is absolutely true in all sorts of fields of study. And so these words, probability, proof, and evidence are key words. And the journey we use, this journey of piecing all the things together, we call this inductive reasoning. Induction. It's a really useful word whether you're doing a GCSE answer or an A-level answer, or whether you just want to sound very clever to someone else as you're talking about it. The inductive process is that process I've just unpacked to you, that process of looking at evidence and trying to draw conclusions from it. So for example, we might look at the evidence that the sun journeys from the eastern sky across to the western sky and conclude from it then that the earth is stationary and the sun moves. Now we now know that's wrong because we misinterpreted the evidence. So that's the first part of our language lesson, and I hope you found that useful. Just to recap those 4 words: probability, proof, evidence and induction. Like the video, keep watching. Next week I'll look at the next part of the language we should be using. Take care. See you then. Goodbye.